So I'll keep this brief. My sister, 30, and I, 29 male, had a falling out when she had a long ongoing relationship with my girlfriend back when we were in high school 12 years ago. My ex-girlfriend was in the closet and said she had a long-time crush on my sister and was using me to try and get close to her. My sister had been out to my father, our mom died years ago, who was doing his best to be supportive of her, but was struggling. I want to mention my dad always had an issue with cheating in a relationship, and it told me that if I ever cheated on my girlfriend at the time, he would disown me. One day, I walked in on my sister and my girlfriend going at it and was heartbroken. They tried to explain to me that they were sorry about what happened, and my sister seemed remorseful, but said the two of them had strong feelings for each other. But I didn't want to hear it. I just left after breaking up with my girlfriend, mostly since I just wanted the last word. Now at dinner, my father could see that I was upset and asked me, and given how upset I was, I just blurted out what happened. He was beyond angry at my sister and yelled at her for breaking my trust and trying to justify it. My sister tried to defend herself by pointing out how hard it is to find any girls willing to date her, given how conservative our area is. However, he wouldn't hear it and kept shouting at her. She left the house when she graduated high school, and I later learned she was disowned. My sister believed he had disowned her because she was gay and was using the situation to have an excuse for himself. She stated she wanted nothing to do with him either. However, she stayed with my ex. Their relationship went further, and my ex supported her through the whole thing. They even got engaged last year. Now cut to the present. My father recently died due to some complications with cancer. My sister didn't bother to go to his funeral, and I hadn't spoken to her in years. I had heard from one of my aunts she was struggling financially. When it came time to read the will, my father left most of his money to me, with a minimal amount for my sister so she wouldn't contest the will. I want to mention the amount he left to me. It's in the low 8 digits. My sister was furious when she found out, and then found out I wasn't going to share it with her. She said it was unfair since our father discriminated against her, and I supported it. She accused me of having a grudge over what happened in high school, and I can't deny I was a bit upset about that. It left me feeling distrustful of any future partners and hesitant even to try being in a relationship for years. My aunt pointed out that if I kept this grudge, then I would lose any possible relationship with my sister, to which I snapped back and insinuated she would just try and steal any future girlfriend I get, which I do sort of regret. I just want to hear from all of you. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. My sister didn't bother to go to the funeral. So she didn't bother to repair the relationship, even though he was sick and dying, and now wants his money? Someone who skips the funeral and then says, I'm entitled to his money because he was an idiot, is in fact the idiot here. I'm sorry, but I would stick to your dad's wishes. People calling you out for holding a grudge shouldn't forget that your sister's holding a grudge against your dad. She deliberately betrayed you and destroyed her relationship with you, did some impressively twisted mental gymnastics to somehow be the victim for having to bear responsibility for her crappy actions, when either no or low contact with your dad, and called him awful names for calling her out on her crap, and still thinks she should get anything? Nope. It's not a grudge if she never apologized for blowing up and then blowing off your family. There's no part of her actions that's defensible, and she only came back for money. I loathe the people who play the victim card like that. You just hate me because I'm a minority. No, I hate you because you're a crappy person who only thinks about themselves. They both betrayed him. The girlfriend was using him to get to his sister. She's even more heinous than the sister because she was just toying with his emotions while seducing his sister. When your sibling's partner comes to you with, I'm dating your sibling to get close to you, let's have intimacy. No matter your orientation, you're supposed to say, ew, and go tell your sibling so they can free themselves from a crappy relationship, not make out and get engaged to a person who do this kind of crap. My dad, who I'll call Steve, left me, 24 female, and my mom when I was 8. Then when I was 16, I started dating a guy and met his dad. I'll call his dad Bill. Bill and I became really close during my high school years. He taught me how to fish, which I now love, throw a football, change a flat tire, and do other surface-level dad jobs. He also taught me a lot about life. When I went to prom with his son, my boyfriend at the time, now my fiancé, he pulled me aside and told me that I should expect my boyfriend to always be respectful to me, and if I ever felt uncomfortable, I had a right to speak up. Bill is really sweet and loving to his wife, and he always tells me to never settle for anything less. He has been such a role model to me in my life. My mom taught me a lot of similar stuff, but never from a man's perspective. Unfortunately, she passed away when I was 19, and I've considered my boyfriend's family my own family since then. I spend the holidays with them, see them at least once or twice a week, etc. When I was 22, my biological dad, Steve, reached out to me on social media. He wanted to reconnect. I was mad at him at first, but I realized he was lost when I was a kid. He was addicted to meds, couldn't hold a job, and generally wasn't doing me right as a father, so he left. I understood this and forgave him. I call him Dad and see him about once every 2 weeks. I'm getting married soon, and it made sense for Bill to walk me down the aisle. It's not like he's giving me away since I'm joining his family, but he's been my male role model for my entire life, so I wanted him by my side on the big day. So he and his wife will walk with my fiancé down the aisle, then he'll walk back and down the aisle again with me. The other day I was talking about wedding stuff with Steve, bio dad, and he said, "I'm so excited to walk you down the aisle finally." I was confused, and I explained that Bill would be walking me down the aisle. I explained that Bill had been more of a dad to me over the past decade than Steve has. Steve got really angry. He said that we had made up, and he had gotten his life back on track, and it seemed like I was excluding him from an important moment. He threatened not to even come to my wedding, and then he stormed out of the restaurant. I was really shocked and hurt that he reacted that way, but I started to think about it, and thought maybe I was the idiot by asking someone who isn't my dad to walk me down the aisle. I've been talking it over with my friends and fiancé, but they're all biased sources because they don't like my dad much. So I wanted to ask a neutral party, am I the idiot? Then he stormed out of the restaurant? So he runs out of your life a second time. On the other hand, your boyfriend/fiancé's dad coming into your life has been a blessing. Congrats on your pending wedding. Good luck, and you are not the idiot. Forget Steve. Sounds like he's reconnected so he doesn't feel so crappy about himself not being a good father. It's your wedding and 100% your call. And if he blew up like that, I would keep him at arm's length. Steve can be unhappy about it, but it's the bed he deliberately made. Meds or not, he made that bed. Strong agree. Steve's strong reaction points to someone who's more interested in status than responsibility or accountability. Just because you reconnected with him doesn't change the fact that Bill was there when you needed a father. This is your wedding. You get to decide. And if he doesn't like it, he can keep it to himself if he wants to stay in your life. My wife, 28 female, and I, 30 male, bought my grandparents' house a year ago. It's quite a big home in a good neighborhood with a pool. We wanted a house with a pool, to be honest. I'm an architect, and my wife is an interior designer, so we did some work around the house before we moved in. For a better explanation, the neighbor in question is neighbor A, and the other is B. The pool is located in the backyard closer to neighbor B, so we decided to put a sliding lattice wall in the middle of our yard and recess the pool area a bit. I did all of this because my wife likes to tan and swim topless. She doesn't do it all the time, but I wanted to ensure my wife's privacy and avoid snoopy neighbors as much as possible. A few days ago, we were chilling at the pool after a long day of work, watching TV and drinking, when my wife took her top off, no biggie. One of the neighbors told us that this was a family neighborhood and that we would do better if we kept that in mind because neighbor A said that she saw us at night. Odd, because she had to stand at the very end of her property and because of her height, get in something. We shut our mouths, but 5 days ago, when I came home from work, my wife was out discussing with our neighbors. It turns out that the lady caught her husband watching my wife the second time and was calling her names. I cut the discussion short and sent them home, threatening to call the police if we caught the husband doing that. I guess the lady wanted to spread the word before we did to save face, and told a few of our neighbors about my wife being indecent, leaving her husband out altogether. So I went out of my way too. Whenever I see someone, her neighborhood friends, I make small talk and tell them about my very nice lattice wall, the creep husband, and how he has to go out of his way to watch my poor wife at home. Needless to say, they're being cast out for his behavior. And my wife and I think it's funny, but my family not so much. So I was wondering if we're in the wrong. Not the idiot. Oh, I hate that. The dude acts disgusting, and his wife blames the woman instead of her man. You installed privacy walls, and it's your property. If your wife wants to be topless, there's absolutely no issue. If someone is going out of their way to spy on her, they're in the wrong. It's good you're telling your neighbors, as they probably like to know that they have a creep living by them. In the privacy of your own back garden, and he's been watching her? He's a peeping Tom. You should both be able to do as you please, and it might be a family neighborhood, but unless the whole neighborhood is watching, it doesn't mean a thing. Tell the woman to control her husband. He obviously has nothing better to do, and he's likely been spying on all the neighbors at one point or another. I don't know if this is true, but my late mother-in-law's brother was a police officer and used to tell her, never believe that a peeping Tom is harmless and will stop at peeping. To OP, you might want to consider upgrading your security and making a police report so there's a record of his behavior. I, 22 female, live with my parents, 50 female and 52 male, and my two brothers, 18 and 19. Since I turned 18 and started working, 50% of my salary goes to my parents to help around the house. I earn $1,100 minimum wage, and $550 is for them, the rest to spend as I want. I had the sweet illusion that they would do the same to my brothers when they started working, and I was irritated to learn that the two of them paid nothing at home. When I confronted my parents, they said that they earn very little because they're interns. They make $600, and that they would barely have money if they paid half. I mentioned the idea of paying less then because I also wanted to have some money myself, but they said no because it was money that they count on. For several reasons that I won't mention, health-related, my parents' house is adapted for me. It's not easy for me to move, so I accepted, even though I was annoyed. It's been about 3 months since I was promoted, and my salary is double what I used to earn, $2,200. I know that if I mentioned that I had been promoted to my parents, they would ask to increase the contribution, and I'm still pretty upset that they don't charge the other kids. So I didn't comment, and my schedule barely changed. I don't have exorbitant expenses, and I'm saving enough money to move and make all the necessary adaptations. My parents aren't in the best financial situation. They're tight, and they insist on not charging my brothers. That money would make a difference. They asked if I could pay 60%, but I said that our agreement was 50%, and I stressed again that their two children also work. Well, recently my mother couldn't get through to me on my phone and called the service, asking about me and if they could pass on a message. I think one of the secretaries said something at the end like, "I'll pass the message to the manager then." I was a regular employee. My parents questioned me, and despite trying to deny it, they discovered that I was earning twice as much and started charging 50%, $1,100. When I said no because it was unfair, they invited me to leave the house since I wasn't doing what was agreed, so I could very well live alone. I don't think they thought I would go. I'm at my friend's house. It's not easy, and I just paid for the 2 weeks of the month I was there, $275. Since leaving, they've been bombing me, saying that they need me to help by paying the $550 or moving back, paying more. And now they're super tight, and that I caused this whole fight by lying to them and not helping around the house anymore, knowing they were tight. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your parents' finances are not your problem. When you were living at home, paying a portion for rent, etc., at your age, that was a great thing to do. Taking 50% of your pay wasn't. Not asking your brothers to help and expecting you only to help out. That's just insane. OP, moving out was your best option. However, if you can comfortably stay with a friend, do that. They don't sound like very good parents, to be honest. I couldn't imagine doing my kids that way. I want them to have bright futures, and taking money from them that they're trying to save up would be horrible. Focus on your future and let them focus on theirs. They were fine with the $550, but as soon as they learned you got the raise, they wanted more. 60% of your previous pay is $660. That leaves you with $440, less the money your brothers can't afford to spare. They could have evened it out, that you're all left with $550 or something. Then you wouldn't need to pay for everything. But it's either a broken calculator or they intentionally want to limit your finances, which is slightly concerning. Is it because they're male and you're female? I don't know the reason, but I cannot overemphasize favoritism. You've paid half your salary for 4 years. That's enough. They've had all that time to get into a better financial situation, so they wouldn't need your money. Therefore, you don't owe them. Move out and move on. My friend Isla, 26 female, and I, 26 female, have known each other since middle school. We applied to the same college and got in. However, Isla got pregnant after a few months and decided to drop out. She's had 3 more accidental pregnancies and is now a stay-at-home mother of 4. I told her the other day that I'm going to travel to Europe, and if all goes well, I'll move there. She got annoyed with me and told me that it must be nice to have all the freedom and no responsibilities. Like, hello, I work. I'm doing my PhD. It's not like I'm just sitting on my butt because I don't have kids. This wasn't the first time she took jabs at me for that, but it was the first time she was this rude. I told her that if she wanted to be free and go off whenever and wherever she wanted, she should have used protection and thought before having kids. Our conversation was at my house, and her kids weren't there. She got really mad and left, slamming the door on her way out. She hasn't replied to my messages, but she started telling everyone what an awful person I am. Am I the idiot for snapping at her? 4 accidental pregnancies? At some point, that's not an accident. That's choosing to let pregnancies happen. I think you've just grown too far apart. She's jealous, but that's on her. She chose her life, and you chose yours. 4 kids didn't just happen to her without her input. Not the idiot. And maybe it's best if you let the friendship fizzle out. Once is accidental. Twice is a coincidence. Thrice is enemy action. 4 is, I don't know, alcoholism probably. If she didn't want the massive burden of having multiple kids, she should have thought twice about it. She chose her path and she's bitter about it. It's not your fault for having a human reaction. We were having problems and thought having a kid would help. The try to save the marriage baby. I have a few friends that are one of those. Adding a baby into the mix is very hard for people who love each other deeply. But for some reason, a baby will help our crumbling marriage people think focusing on a baby will help bring them closer and or make them forget their issues. Spoiler alert, it will not. OP, the only near idiot thing I see here is why in the world you would continue to be friends with such a spoiled, entitled, irresponsible brat. I get that you've known each other for over a decade, but at least one of you appears to have grown up since middle school. Count your blessings and stop texting her. Let her be miserable. That's what she wants. In the meantime, enjoy your trip. Have a great time. Take lots of pictures that hopefully you can share with your own family when the time is right.